Hey, Nick from Renewed Mind Coaching again. In this module, I'd like to share with you a powerful tool to help you to make some of life's biggest decisions. Now, some decisions are difficult to make through research and thinking alone. When you rely just on research and thinking, you might miss some important details. It can be risky to make big decisions based on research and thinking alone. And sometimes the best way to make a decision is by trying things. So, we're going to talk about a method that allows you to try things before you make a big decision. So, think about things like we'll talk about some examples here shortly, but uh, career changes or moving. Now, those are big decisions. And let's say you decide that you want to become a doctor and you have done some research, you've looked online, you found, oh, doctors make over $200,000 a year. That sounds wonderful. And you're helping people. Great. Now let me go through 8+ years of schooling, um, and, all the stuff that you have to do to become a doctor. And then you get into it and realize that it's not exactly what you had thought. Now, this happens all the time. The statistics are somewhere around like 80% of people are not in a career that lines up with their college degree. So they went to college, they spent probably tens of thousands of dollars or more on a degree that they're not using. So how can we um, increase our chances that we'll be happy with the decision that we made? So what I'm going to explain to you is a way to use experimentation to to move forward to make decisions. So the first thing is we want to formulate a hypothesis. So the steps to formulate the hypothesis are to state the question your experiment is looking to answer, identify your independent and dependent variables. I'm going to go into details on all these things in a moment. And then write an if then statement that clearly defines the focus and the variables of the experiment. So let me start with some definitions. What is a hypothesis? A hypothesis is a statement used to guide your experiments. The hypothesis must be testable and falsifiable. Hypothesis should be more than a good guess, and it should be drawn from background research. So we're going to still do some research to make an educated guess. So we're not going to just randomly select things. We're going to do a little bit of research first to help us to come up with a hypothesis. Now, we're going to have independent variables and dependent variables. So, an independent variable is the component that is being changed in the experiment and has a direct impact on the dependent variable. Okay, so the independent variable is the thing we're going to change. The dependent variable is influenced by the independent variable, and this is what's being tested or measured in the experiment. Experiments look to examine the effects that the independent variable has on the dependent variable. So let me start with a very simple, this is not a life-changing decision here, but something that's probably relatable to most people. Which pants should you purchase? So first, you want to start by stating the question your experiment is looking to answer. And in this case, you're looking to answer which pants would you prefer to wear or purchase. Step two is to identify your independent and dependent variables. So the independent variable in this case is which pants. And the dependent variable is going to be your preference, right? So you're going to try some different pants on and you're going to see which one has the most positive impact on your preference. So then we're going to write an if then statement that clearly defines the focus and the variables of the experiment. So this is our actual hypothesis. So now that we've identified the focus, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so here's the hypothesis. If I purchase Levi's 501 jeans in 3432s, I will prefer wearing them. So that's what we're looking to prove true or false. Now, you probably don't go through this level of detail when selecting a pair of pants, but again, I think it's a good example that's relatable. So now that we've put together a hypothesis, we're going to test that hypothesis. So we start with some research, and that's going to be to identify the things that are important to you and determine how the Levi's 501 genes in 3432 measure up. So things like fit, style, comfort are probably important to you when wearing jeans. Maybe you're looking for a pair of jeans that fit over your boots. Maybe you like zippers. Maybe you like buttons. But identifying what are those things that are important to you in a pair of jeans, and then we're going to go try, right? So we're not going to just purchase a pair and hope that we like them. We're actually going to go to the store and try on a pair of Levi's 501 jeans in 3432 and see what we think. And then we'll probably test out a few other hypotheses in this area. Maybe we want to try on some Wranglers. Maybe, we want to try on some different sizes, different cuts, different styles, right? And until we find the one that we prefer the most. All right, now let's look for let's look at a more bigger, higher stakes decision. You want to decide where to live, and that could be a big deal if you're talking about moving to another state, maybe moving to another country. So, in this scenario, a couple wants to decide where they enjoy living the most. So, what is the question we're looking to answer? That is, which location would result in the highest happiness level for you? And our independent dependent variables. So our independent variable is going to be the location. That's the thing that we change. And our dependent variable is our happiness level. So we're going to see what impact the location has on our happiness level. Now we're going to write the hypothesis, the if-then statement. If we move to Florida, then our happiness level will increase. All right, so how do we test out this hypothesis? We're going to do some more research. We're going to talk with other people who live in Florida and see what they like and what they don't like about being in Florida. Just doing a Google search doesn't give you all the details that you might get from somebody who's actually living there. Then we're going to identify what are the factors that are really important to you, and then determine how Florida measures up. So perhaps the proximity to friends and family. If all of your friends and family live on the West Coast, and that's really important to you to be around friends and family, to be able to spend time like celebrating birthdays and Christmas and just hanging out with each other, then living in Florida would would make it hard for you to do those things. The climate, if you enjoy warm, high humidity climate, yeah, maybe Florida would be a good place for you. Crime levels, the quality of the schools, the proximity to important amenities like medical care. If you have certain medical conditions, it might be good for you to be close to a really good hospital or really good doctors, things like that. Uh, Proximity to to shopping. If you're even just grocery shopping, if you live 2 hours away from the nearest grocery store because you live in the middle of Alaska, that's going to have an impact on you. And then the recreational opportunities. So, some people are avid snow skiers, and living in Florida would make it really hard to snow ski. Now, if you're a surfer or you like to fish in the ocean, now Florida might be a good place for you. So, figure out what are all those things, and this is all stuff that you can do in the research phase, and then you're gonna actually try it. Now, this gets a little bit more expensive than trying on a pair of jeans, right? But what's the lowest cost? It's expensive to just move there, buy a U-Haul, rent a house, buy a house, whatever, and move there, and then find out 6 months later that you hate it. So, what's the lowest cost way that you can prove this hypothesis to be true or false? How about spending 2 weeks living in Florida? And what I mean by living is different than vacationing. Because, of course, most of the time you're going to enjoy vacationing because you're doing things during a vacation that you don't typically do during just regular living. And usually those things are more enjoyable, right? So, what would it look like to perhaps go and rent an Airbnb in a neighborhood? So you're not in a hotel that has room service and a swimming pool and all that stuff, but you actually spend 2 weeks living in a house that would be in the type of neighborhood that you want to live in. And then uh, go for walks around the block. Do things that you would do where you normally live. Talk with the neighbors. Go and take a look at some different employment opportunities. So, if you're in the medical field, go and check out the local hospitals, the local surgery centers, things like that. If if you have kids, actually go and take a look at the schools. Um, Make an appointment with the administrator and sit down and have a conversation with them. Look at the kids when they're out on the playground. Now, don't get too creepy there, but like pay attention to what's going on. If it's a really rough neighborhood, rough schools, you might not like that. So spend some time doing the things that you would normally do while living in a place. All right, let's move on to the next option or the next problem, which is career change. You want to determine which career you would enjoy the most. So, what question are we trying to answer? We're trying to answer which career would you enjoy the most? And our independent variable is the career. That's the thing that we're going to change. Our dependent variable is our enjoyment level. So, what will bring you the most enjoyment? So, our hypothesis, our if then statement is if I have a nursing career, my enjoyment level will increase. Okay. So now we want to test that out, and we're going to start again in the research phase. So talk with other nurses and see what they like and what they don't like about their job. Now, this is, something I think nursing, being a doctor, a lot of people think that you spend your whole day helping other people and helping them to, solve their medical issues. In reality, you spend a lot of time filling out paperwork. And nurses, man, they've got a tough job. They're cleaning up bodily fluids and doing things that are just really not very fun. Um, and yes, they do get to do things that bring them great joy and meaning, but it's not, we tend to think of what are all the great things in a career, and we don't realize some of the things that are not so fun. Like teachers, for example, you might like the idea of teaching kids about math or history or science, but in reality, you spend a fair amount of your time dealing with behavioral issues and dealing with parents and correcting papers, right? So there's pieces of the job that we don't think about typically. And so that's why it's really important to talk with someone who's actually doing the thing that you're interested in doing. And then the next thing you want to do is identify what are the things that are important to you and determine how that career, nursing in this case, measures up. So, what are you passionate about? Do you really enjoy helping the elderly? Right? So maybe working as a nurse in a skilled nursing facility where you work with people who tend to be older in age. Or perhaps you enjoy working with pregnant mothers and infants. And so maybe a career in nursing in labor and delivery might be a good place for you. What are those things that you're really passionate about? Who are the types of people that you want to be able to serve? The income level, that's unfortunately a big factor in choosing your career. Can you live the type of lifestyle that you want to live while making that the income level that particular career provides? What's the job availability and security look like? Is this a rare job that's hard to find in maybe the locations you want to live in? Or do they have, like in nursing, they have jobs everywhere? You can live just about anywhere you want and get a job in nursing. And the security's there, like people will always need medical care. The environment, do you prefer working outdoors? Do you prefer working indoors? Do you hate um, fluorescent lighting? So those are key factors. Do you like being social and working next to and with other people and with the public? All things to consider. What are the physical requirements? If you're um, wheelchair bound, being a nurse is probably not the right career for you. So, can you keep up the physical demands of the job? And how do you try something like that? Now, I don't know if this is really possible, but spend 2 days shadowing a nurse and actually, see what they do on their, 12-hour shift. A lot of nurses work 12-hour shifts. So, um, what does that look like for them? And then, some other options potentially here is look for volunteer opportunities. Sometimes there are volunteer opportunities at hospitals where it's not exactly the same, but you get a feel for the environment. Where maybe you're escorting people to different locations. Or my daughter, before she became a nurse, she worked as a scribe at a hospital, and so she got to work close with the doctors and the nurses and got to see what they were doing. She worked in an emergency room, and so look for what are some part-time, where you could pick up a day or two, or volunteer opportunities where you can just try something out for a little while that is cheaper than spending years going to school to become a nurse. All right, so that's it. Um, this is one of my favorite ways to be able to make decisions and move forward in life is by trying things out. A lot better than just researching and thinking and then taking this huge step and moving or going to college for years or whatever, only to find out that um, we missed a few things in our thinking and research, and uh, we don't like the decision we made as much as we thought. So how can we try things out before we fully commit?